everyone, welcome back. Thanks for being here. We have made it to part 4 of the what is the best gold paint to use with paint and water. Now, I read through the comments of the videos. I've been super busy getting ready for Mardi Gras, so I haven't been able to respond to them all, but I have been reading them. And there was a request for Artist Loft, Arteza, and 24 karat gold. So originally I thought part 4 would just be kind of me talking about things and showing you just one painting of how I do it, but I decided to test out a few more and show you how I do it. So I'm gonna kind of talk you through everything similar that I've done to the other ones. In the description, I've linked each part of the video. The views have kind of been going down on them, so maybe some subscribers don't like it, but it doesn't matter to me as long as it helps some people kind of figure out your own kind of way and the way you want to do it. Now, I will say there are tons of different recipes that are out there for a Dutch pour. I am not coming here to tell you which one is right or wrong. I am just showing you the way that I do it. So if you want to stick with the way that you're doing it, I say go for it. Or maybe you want to experiment with different brands and this gave you an idea to do it with your pouring medium. Please go right ahead. I am not telling you to do, I will never really tell you that this is the only way that you can do something. But I am going to use the same paints that I did before. So I'm using, these are literally the same paints that I just put caps on them. So it is an opaque turquoise green, a transparent phthalo blue, and opaque white. All of them are Amsterdam, titanium white. All of them are Amsterdam. The base is Amsterdam black, and I know exactly how those react. I will show you all of the recipes and how I mix the paints and my consistency, and then we'll get started. Let's paint. All right, and towards the end of the video, after I've showed you the dried results of these, I will go through how you fix paintings that maybe have broken just a little bit and explain a little bit more about why I use normally paint and water or paint and a couple other mixtures, and just kind of go through everything and sum everything up for you. But to start here, I have the, is this in focus? Let me see here. Okay, good. So you can see this is 24 karat gold, Arteza, and Artist Loft. I'll show you the bottles in just a second. These are the recipes that I had. So about a little more than 50% water in the 24 karat gold. I will say this one was sticky. Like I didn't want to add more water to it. I probably could have. I'll show you on the consistency test, but it's just thick and gooey and sticky. The Artist Loft took a lot. It was actually really thick bodied. So it took almost double the amount of water to paint. And then Arteza was pretty much like the other ones. It was around 50-50 volume, weight wise. And that one was about 32 grams of water. You can see the golds. They're all very pretty. I do like all 3 of these golds. This is old gold, the Artist Loft. That was the only one that I could find. Arteza is just regular gold. And then this is Deco Art 24 karat. For transparency, the 24 karat gold is semi-opaque to almost opaque. If I did another layer, I could make that opaque. The Artist Loft says that it's opaque, but really it's semi-opaque. And then the Arteza is semi-opaque, and that is true. Price-wise was about $2 an ounce for Arteza. The price ranges on this one. Michael's actually went up, I think, to $12.99, but you can get sales on that one. So it's about, I would say, $1 to $1.30 per ounce. And then the Artist Loft down at the bottom is really, it's about $1 an ounce. This is probably one of the, I don't want to say cheaper because I don't mean like inexpensive, I'll say. But there you have this part, and then you can see my consistency test here. I don't want to lean it up anymore. The paints will keep running. So I count up, let me see, let me get you this way. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if it's in between here, it's good. All of these were This one kind of dribbled down a little bit further, but this is the 24 karat. Oh, I didn't have these on here. Dang. This was 24 karat. This was Arteza. This was Artist Loft. And this is my Winsor & Newton Creative Inspirations mix. And then this was black. Sorry about that. So the 24 karat gold was the one that it was just kind of goopy, and it looks thin enough, and it is thin enough, but it just kind of sticks to the paper a lot. So there you have that. I will get you back on the canvas. We can do the experiment, and then I can talk to you about it all. I do always forget to show you the bottles. So I've already shown you the Winsor & Newton Creative Inspiration, so I won't show those again, but this is Arteza, semi-opaque, regular gold. And that is that one. The 24 karat gold is Deco Art. And this is really like a kind of craft type paint for like the Americana Decor series is a lot of times for like painting furniture and things like that. It's in the same kind of category as the enamels, but you have to shake this one really well. And it is just, if you don't shake it, you'll have this like big film on the top of it that's kind of oily. And I think that's why this creates crazy cells normally. So it's really good to create like pearl cells as well. Not pearl like pearlescent paints, but like pearlized cells. But yeah, so it doesn't have much information on it because it's more of like a craft kind of furniture type paint, but that is that one. And then the last one, let me not pick the last one is Artist Loft. This is series 1, academic level, so student grade. It is the old gold, and it says that it's opaque. It's not really. In my opinion, it's semi-opaque, and it is a pretty gold. I could only find the old gold, so I'm not sure. I would have to look and see if they made any others, but this is all I could find in the small and the large bottles. But there you have it, and I will get you back on the canvas. All right, so I'm going to take these off and keep them kind of close by where they're supposed to be so that I remember where they're supposed to go. And then I'll tell you about the Winsor & Newton Creative Inspirations mix. So I already had them mixed up from the other videos. So if I hadn't, I normally mix the two paints themselves together first. But what I did here was 40 grams of the Winsor & Newton plus water mixture, and then I did 10 grams of the Creative Inspirations. It works out to be roughly around 20%. I would say don't venture over like 30 or 40% mixing the two together, because then they'll start to crack and break a little more. But we'll get into it a little bit at the end, a little bit more, but I have just found that mixing a cell reactive paint with a paint that's not cell reactive but stands up well to paint and water works really well, because I can adjust. I can add a little bit of the cell reactive paint or a pretty good amount to change the amount of cells that I get. And this doesn't just work with metallics. I have taken Creative Inspirations, I do this often, Creative Inspirations, and mix it with Amsterdam, similar color, in varying ratios to create an amount of cells in a painting. So if someone says, I want just a little bit of orange cells, then I can mix that together and just get that. So doing it this way, the way that I do it, allows me to have a little bit more control over what I'm doing. So, and that's just what I found over the years. But I'm going to clear this off, and then I'm going to lay down my base coat, blow that out, and then we will start in with the colors. Okay, I have the base blown out and covered, torched, and I am ready to go. So I'm going to do this I'm going to try to, very similar to the last one. So I'm going to start with the puddle of turquoise. Oh, that one's a little close there. Oh well. I like to do it kind of in this quadrant over here. Now, some people said maybe it's your black base, maybe it's you should put the gold on top, maybe, you know, there's all these different things, but I have kept all of these exactly the same. That's why I experiment this way with them. So, so that I can say, okay, this reacted this way, but it wasn't because of this thing, or it wasn't because of that thing. So if you're trying these experiments at home and you had a question about one of those things, maybe do it this exact same way, but layer the gold on top of the white, or, you know, whatever it may be. That's why I love these experiments. And maybe it'll save you some time and maybe some money. I'm going to try to go a little bit closer in there for your experiments as well. All right, so now I am going to come in. So 24 karat gold up here. So the first thing I'm looking at is, does it sink? No, it spreads. And I know that this one spreads, and I normally use it with Floetrol and gloss medium and some other things. So for like my thicker paintings, or I do that mixture and I thin it out for pearl cells. But I know that this one spreads and it normally creates a lot of cells, but I'm just not sure if it's gonna dry well thinned just with water. Okay, so my next one is Artist Loft, and I'm looking to see if it sinks, if it spreads, how it reacts, and then I'm gonna look at how it dries and whether it creates cells. Next up is which one is this? Oh, this is my mixture. Okay, so Winsor & Newton and Creative Inspiration. Stays on top, really pretty. Let's see, Arteza. Now, I have tested Arteza before. Okay, so this one's good too. Stays on top. Did I? Okay, no, I did it right. I was like, oh my gosh, did I do it wrong? Look at how much this one has spread. Oh my gosh. And I'm telling you, and this was the thickest one out of the bunch. Now, I will say consistency matters. If one of your paints is, that's enough. If one of your paints is thinner or thicker than the other ones, you can get cracking and breaking no matter the mixture that you're using. If your painting is not level, even if you're using a perfect mixture, if your painting is not level, it will slide off, and then sometimes you can get cracking and breaking because as the paint film dries, it will start to separate if it's not level, and it will slide off, and you could get cracking and breaking that way too. So just some other things to keep in mind. All right, I think I'm ready. I think I'm trying to like remember all the things to tell you as well. So I'm gonna blow just a little bit over and try to really blow that one out. This one has spread out so much. These two, see how this one looks just really concentrated, and this is how it normally looks. All right, let's blow these out. Okay, I knew immediately my mixture, when I blew it, I didn't mix the colors. And then when I blew it, I didn't give my gold time to like mix together and interact. So I knew immediately. I might even grab another canvas really quick and try it again. This one, the gold, okay, let me start from the beginning here. So this was the first one I did. This is Artist Loft. It created cells immediately. They grew quite large, and I don't really like the cell structure of them. I'm going to give it a chance and see how it dries. I just don't know if it's going to dry well or not, and I don't like how spread out they became. The 24 karat gold, I know, is going to dry gorgeous. I can already see a little bit of separating though. But this, it's got like this huge sheen of gold right over the top. You'll be able to see that. Now, what I am pleasantly surprised with is the arteza. It is super cell reactive as well. Almost immediately cells showed up, and it doesn't look like this may crack or break as of right now. So this may be a contender as well. And I feel like I want to give my mixture one more try, so I might do that too. Isn't that the funniest? The one that I don't think that, the one that I use all the time that I know works is the one that didn't work in the video. All right, let me pour this again. I'm gonna pay attention to what I'm doing. Put my turquoise, my blue, my gold mixture, and my white. The way that you blow these is so important. Blowing the colors over versus making a line and just kind of blowing them out. Like the interaction of the paint is super important for this. Okay, let me give this a torch. That is too funny. Okay, let me see if I made a liar of myself. Okay, so this is actually perfect because I can show you and then I'm gonna do it one more time. So this, see, these cells are beautiful right here. I'm starting to get cells kind of popping up everywhere. But this was a 20% mixture of the creative inspirations. If I wanted, and I am starting to get kind of cells popping up everywhere as it develops. If I wanted a ton of cells, I would add more creative inspirations to this. So I did 40 and 10. So I might add, it's not going to be the same now, but I would, and I do it by my heart. I don't measure. I don't when I'm doing it alone, but I may just add a few more milliliters of creative inspiration and show you one more time. So take a mental picture of what this looks like. And I'm going to do it one more time. Let me go grab the creative inspirations. Okay, so this is my Winsor & Newton Creative Inspirations mix. I am literally just going to add a tiny little bit more. Again, I don't like to go over a 50-50 mixture of this because then I worry that there may be some breaking when it dries. I don't know, y'all, that arteza is actually really pretty. The cells are starting to grow a little bit in here. I like my cells to not grow as much and to kind of remain kind of circular or in almost like that brain kind of. This is actually really pretty. I wonder if I should set it aside and do another one instead. I feel like I should. I feel like I should set this one aside so that I can give you a comparison when I let them dry. I will do that. Good thinking, Molly. All right. Coming in one more time. Got my turquoise blue, my phthalo blue. Uh-oh, where did it go? Okay, that's regular Creative Inspirations. This is my mixture of the two. So now this is about, I would say 35%, 30 or 35% Creative Inspirations. And that's what I'm talking about. I can kind of slide the amount to either get no cells, just Winsor & Newton, some cells, or a pretty good amount of cells. All right, so I'm like a mess now. Let me see here. Okay, my gold. Okay, and then my white. I'm looking back at these again. The gold is gorgeous, but I do see it kind of starting to crack a little bit. The arteza is like spreading out. It reminds me of Pebeo a little bit. And I just don't like how the cells have spread out in the artist loft, although it is cell reactive. Okay, let's see if this reacts any different. Torch and blow it out. Phew, not a liar. So you can see, I'm going to change the composition, I think, a little bit on a couple of these because some of them I can save maybe. Oh, this one. All right. So now this is what I like. I like pockets of cells. They're more circular, a little more rounded. They're growing a little bit, but not too much. And it's a much more controlled look. So it's not just like cells everywhere, almost as if you did silicone in it. Instead, it's small kind of pockets of them in the gold and the color that the gold was underneath. So I'm really glad actually this happened now because I could show you the difference. And when these dry and wet, I'll show you the small amount of cells mixing at about 20% and the good amount of cells mixing about 30 to 35%. Again, I don't like to go over that because then you run the risk of it cracking and breaking a little bit more. But I will show you what these look like and then I'll do my kind of final summary of everything. And if you have been following along with the series and watching, I just want to say thank you so much. I appreciate you and I hope that you found it helpful. So let's see how these dry. All right, so here we go. So let me see if I can get you in. See how that gold like sits on the top of everything here, but I can already see it starting to break right there. So the 24 karat gold really needs to be mixed with some type of binder. Here is the arteza. I'm looking pretty hopeful. I see one spot there that may not do too well, but overall, and a couple spots up there, this had great cell reaction. I would put this in my cell reactive paint bucket. Had great cell reactions, and it looks like it may have a little bit of breaking. This was Artist Loft, and I don't dislike it. I just don't like how kind of blurry the cells become. So we'll see how it dries, and I can see it's actually not separating as much as I thought. But we'll see how this one goes. And then this is my tried and true, and it's got a small amount of cells. It's got a good amount, but those are the types of cells I like. Do you see the difference in these cells versus these cells? These are rounder, they're more structured. Even these up here, there's lacing, but these are like rounder, more structured, but really pretty. And then let me show you the 20% Creative Inspirations one. All right, so here is this one, and you can see as you get towards the edges, you definitely get cells popping up there. Very, very pretty. I've got this really pretty little set here. So it's not that it didn't work. It just takes a little bit longer, and the more cell reactive paint you mix in with this, the more cells you get. But there does become a tipping point where it will start to crack and break. All right, so let's see how these dry, and then I will kind of go over and summarize everything. Okay, I have them all out on the table, but we're going to go over the 4 from this video, or the 5 actually from this video first, and then I'll walk you through kind of my final thoughts of each set. I have broken them apart into cell reactive, holds up well, and doesn't hold up well to paint and water. And then, I hope I'm not making you dizzy. And then I will talk you through some of my final thoughts and maybe show you a painting and what I would do to rectify what happens. So this is Artist Loft. I'll be honest, the gold it's okay. It's nice. I don't like how it kind of disappears up through the petals. So take a look at it. And it did kind of break apart. Not as much as I thought, which is kind of nice, but in these kind of thicker areas, it definitely, it's not cracking, right? It's just, it kind of broke apart a little bit, like it separated a little bit, the pigment. So that was Artist Loft. So it's pretty, the gold, I gave it a 3. Cell creation, it definitely created cells. I could have given this a 3 or a 4, again, because I don't like how they spread out so much. I like it when there's more lacing and the cells are a little bit more circular. And then for the cracking and breaking, I gave it a 3 because, again, it held up well along the edges, just not so much in kind of like the thicker parts of it. But overall, not terrible, but not the best. Next up is Arteza. And I will say I actually really liked how this one performed. It has the tiniest little bit of pigment separation, but I would actually say that this performs better by itself than Creative Inspirations or Soho. So I think this is one that could be mixed with one that holds up to paint and water and be used as well. So this is very, very pretty. The price is a little bit more expensive. I think it was $2 per ounce. So let's see. Here, let me take you in on the lots of cell reactions, gorgeous reactions in the center there. But again, just the tiniest bit of separation. But yes, very, very pretty. So the gold itself, I gave it a super shiny, very pretty. I like the color. It's just regular gold. So I gave that a 4.5. Cell creation, I gave that a 4 to a 5 too, because again, it's got beautiful lacing through it. Cell reaction started pretty much immediately and they held their shape. They didn't spread out too much. Then for the cracking and breaking, I gave it a 3 or 4, really. Next up, everybody wanted to see this one. This is what I knew would happen with 24 karat gold. So this is 24 karat gold. It did create cells like immediately when I blew it over, but I knew it did because it has like that oily substance that you have to mix together from it being kind of almost reacting like an enamel type paint. So you can see in there some of the lacing, but you can see all the different areas that this broke apart. So again, I love this paint for thicker techniques, or if you're adding something to it to do like pearl cells or something, but it does need some type of extra binder. The other thing that I don't specifically care for is that the gold tends to like spread out. So like in this one, you get these pockets of cells for the gold, and the other colors are allowed to shine through. 24 karat gold is so strong that, and it just kind of takes over the entire painting. But it does have a really nice shimmer to it, but it does dry a little bit matte, and the pigments are just, it's just not my favorite for this, I will say. But if you are mixing it with other things, and we'll talk about that later, I think it could be okay. But I was just a little bit underwhelmed with this one. So the color I do think is pretty. Cell creation, I gave it a 3. It would be a 5 if the gold didn't take over and really all your cells go away. You just end up with like some lacing. So that's why I gave it a 3, not because it's not cell reactive, but because it is so cell reactive that it basically takes over the painting. And then cracking and breaking, I gave it a 2. So 0 is bad. So the whole thing didn't crack and break, but it definitely had some areas to it. Now, the last 2 are mine. So here, the mixture that I use. This is the one that had about 20% of the creative inspirations in there. This is the one that had about 30 to 35% in there. So I'll take you in. No real cracking or breaking. And you can see in the center, there's a little bit of texture because it was very thick in the center, but I left it this way. I saw it and left it this way because I wanted to see if it could stand up to being thick and still not crack and break. So it's got texture, excuse me, but no cracking and breaking. This is the one that has the like around 30 to 35%. And look at how pretty the details are. The amount of cells that are in there. Super pretty. And for me, this is what I like. And I can adjust how much I want that reaction to occur and with what colors by mixing the 2 paints together. So you can see there's the gold. It's really pretty. Yep, love it. All right, so now let me set the table back up and I will talk to you about these in groupings. Okay, so starting over here, I have them in order. So these are not good with paint and water alone. Now, I will say I have tried golden with paint and water before and it does well. So this experiment, it did not do well, so I'm putting it here, but I would have to test this one more because it does normally have really good binders to it. But this is golden, Tri-Art. So golden, Tri-Art, Blix, and Utrecht. And for these, I would just steer clear of those 4 just paint and water. I'm not saying don't use them, but I'm saying if you are experimenting and you're trying this out with paint and water, these would be 4 I would stay away from. So that's not good with paint and water alone. Next up are the good with paint and water, but no cells. And I have my Liquitex Professional here, but this is actually the winner of the entire series, I would say. So good with paint and water. This is Amsterdam, Liquitex Basics, Winsor & Newton, and Liquitex Professional. This was my favorite because it did well and it still created these beautiful cells and it had a really pretty color to it. But out of this set, I mix mine with Winsor & Newton, but I would say you could mix with any of these paints. Mix a cell reactive one with any of these paints to get a good reaction. And I would stay with around 30% or so, 30 to 35% max of adding a cell reactive paint to these. Here are the cell reactive ones. So cell reactive, but break with just paint and water. And I have a star here for Arteza because this was really close to being, I mean, this was second compared to Liquitex Professional. So here's the Atelier. I think people told me to say it that way. I read through the comments. This one actually surprised me. It was very pretty and it just had the tiniest little bit of separation, but you really honestly couldn't tell. So this one was very, very pretty. I just didn't love the gold color as much, but this one, Atelier, was very pretty. Soho, love the cell reaction. Absolutely love it. It just cracks and breaks just a little bit. It has both a little bit of pigment breaking and a little bit of cracking. So again, by itself, I love Soho and Creative Inspirations because they create cells, but I need to mix them with something else. Up here, Creative Inspirations, love those cells as well. But again, little bit of cracking and breaking. Pebeo, again, beautiful cell creation, but you can see it's a lot of cracking and breaking in that one. Up here is the Artist Loft. Again, those areas that I showed earlier. Here is the Arteza, and Arteza was number 2 for me in this. So number 1 was Liquitex Professional, number 2 is Arteza, and then 24 karat gold down here. So for me, with paint and water, I would probably stay away from this one. I would mix this one with a binder. I wouldn't even try to mix it with something else. I would just mix this one with a binder to make sure that it doesn't crack and break. And then here are my 2 where I mix them together. So now I will come back on camera for a second and just talk you through. And then actually maybe I'll show you what I do to fix one of these paintings as well. Okay, so there's 3, I mean, maybe there's more, but there's 3 ways that you can fix it. While it is wet, if you see little areas like this popping up, you can simply take your finger or just like a little toothpick and just dab the area. And that normally will, depending on the color of your base, sometimes you'll end up with more base coming through, but that normally will just bring the paints back together. Again, it's that kind of base layer coming up, the pigment separating a little bit. The other way is to fix it when it's dry. And I would, when it's wet, if you're trying to kind of touch up some areas when it's wet, I would do it when it's very wet, not when it has started to dry. Because once it's started to dry, you'll end up, if you touch it, you'll end up with like a fingerprint in it. The other way is when it's dry, taking some of the wet paint, had to go get some really quick, taking some of the wet paint. So I just have the wet paint here. You could use a fine brush if you want, but I'm just going to take it like this. And then you can literally just touch it down. Oops, you got to get a good amount on your stick. And then you just touch it down right where those parts are. And when it dries, it will come right back. It'll flatten out and look like it was meant to be there the whole time. The other way is so that was wet. So dry canvas, but wet paint. The other way is just to use the dry paint. And you can come in with just a tiny little bit. This is actually probably too big of a brush. But say I wanted, there's really not too much else to do here, but say I just wanted to touch up this tiny little area right there. And you just come on in and kind of touch it down. Let me do it on the other side so you can actually see it. Like up here, you can just touch a little area up. You can do this. This is not just with paint and water. You can do this with anything. The painting is never done until you say it is. And then when you varnish over top of it, it all looks like it was here to begin with. So in these tiny little parts, like right through there, you can just brush it on down. If you wanted to maybe add a little shadow of gold over top of it, you could do that as well. And then you can see when it dries, it'll go right back to it. So that's how I touch up. If it does happen, that's how I would touch up a painting. And now I will kind of talk about why I use paint and water, sometimes when I don't, and we'll just kind of go from there. Okay, so I hope that you all enjoyed this little series on just paint and water. First, I want to say you don't have to use just paint and water. I do, and I'll explain why I do, but it's just a personal preference. You can use whatever works for you. People watch from, and paint all around the world, right? And everybody has different mediums. So whatever you want to do is totally okay. I'm never going to tell you that there's one specific thing that you should do. But for me, when I first started acrylic pouring, I was using a lot of different mixtures, but I would always use Floetrol and gloss medium. And for my thicker techniques, I have continued using that. I have taken out GAC 800 because as I started using better paints that don't normally crack and break, I didn't need to add that in there. But I have tried a lot of different pouring mediums over the years. So when Rinske Dauna started doing the Dutch pours and she was using just paint and water, I was inspired by that. So I tried it. And I liked the look of that. I liked how vibrant the colors stayed. I liked the way they blended together. And so I started trying out the paints that I had, and I realized very quickly that not all paints work for paint and water. Not all brands work for paint and water. So back then I kind of did a little experiment, and that's how I came to the mixture that I used, which is Winsor & Newton and a cell reactive paint. So I knew that Soho and Creative Inspirations they're easily accessible to me. So that's why I use them, and they're relatively good for the price. But again, you can try this out with whatever. I mean, I didn't get to all brands. This would have taken, it could have been a whole year series on these. But that is kind of how I found out. When I use just Floetrol, which I don't do often anymore, it is very matte, and especially when it's thinned out a little bit, it has almost like a haze to it, and it can be cell reactive on its own, US Floetrol. So I would get unwanted cells coming up. And if I remember at the very end, I'll show you a coaster in which I used my Floetrol and gloss medium as the base, and I'll show you what I mean by that. I have to make a mental note. So I knew that I didn't want to use just Floetrol. And again, if other people do that or you do that, that's totally okay. I just personally did not care for the way it looked as much. And then for gloss medium, really, if you want to mitigate any of this, say you just don't care about brands and you don't care about mixing them together and getting certain cell reactions and you just want something easy, just add a bit of a binder when you thin it out. That binder could be gloss medium. It could be a pouring medium. So like Golden has a golden gloss medium, and they have a golden pouring medium, and both of those have binders in them. Pebeo makes a pouring medium. Amsterdam makes a pouring medium. Some of them are the mediums themselves can be a little bit more cell reactive. So there are a ton of different ways that you can get a binder in there. But if you are worried about it, you can add a binder. For me, it's Creative Inspirations. I use their gloss medium. Liquitex also has a gloss medium that is pretty interchangeable with the Creative Inspirations that I use. But for that one, you don't need a lot. Just a little tiny bit will suffice. If you're making a cup, just a little squirt in there will do just fine. But adding a little bit of a binder can help out with the cracking and the breaking, kind of the separation of the paint. For the way that I do it, I like mixing the brands together. So if you were going to try to do this, say you did want to use paint and water, you could take one of the ones that we know works well, so Winsor & Newton, the Amsterdam, the ones that work well, and mix it with the cell reactive one, and then you can slide it along a scale of how much cell creation you actually want. So that is the way that I've always done it, and that's the way that I teach it, and again, however you want to do it is totally fine. there are lots of ways to actually get the cells. So you can use a cell reactive brand. You can mix a cell reactive and a non-cell reactive brand, layering your opaques and your transparents with your opaques blown over the top so that they sink through, just because a lot of times they are a little bit more dense and fall kind of heavier, if you will, and fall through. Adding a metallic, you don't always have to add a metallic. I get that question often too, like, I don't want to use a metallic in every single painting. How do I get cells that way? I use this method where I combine a cell reactive paint in to get the cells that I want. There were a couple of big floral fire flowers that I did where I didn't use gold. I just used the yellow, red, white, and orange. And I mixed in Creative Inspirations orange into those colors to get the cells that I got. So you can do that with any color. It doesn't have to be a metallic color. This works. I take Amsterdam normally and mix it in with Creative Inspirations or Soho if I'm doing a color, because I have all the I don't have all the colors of Winsor and Newton there, but I have the colors of the Amsterdam. So I use those colors and mix in, again, just like 20 or 30% of the Creative Inspirations or Soho colors that I have to create the cells that I want. So it's just kind of what I found over the years that works, and I really enjoy it. And again, there's nothing wrong with anybody's pouring medium that they're using themselves. This is just the way that kind of I have done it over the years, and I have experimented and learned a lot. So if you have tried any other brands that you know of that maybe I didn't try here, that you found either they do work well or they don't work well, please put them in the chat. I would love to know some other brands that are out there. I didn't try Master's Touch. I haven't tried that one, but a student did bring some. And I do know, like for a private lesson, and I do know that that one also is cell reactive. I was a little bit underwhelmed by the 24 karat gold, I will say, even though upon first blow, it was very cell reactive. But again, I just don't like the way the pigments kind of spread out over the top. My favorite for this series was Liquitex Professional and then Arteza. And I even think mixing the two of those together might work really well. My biggest kind of cell creation ones for me were the Creative Inspiration and the Soho. Atelier surprised me too, just based off paint and water. I feel like that would maybe be number 3, maybe. And then Artist Loft and I guess my mixture, I really enjoy that mixture too. So yeah, so the last little piece, you can drop any questions you have in the comments, and I hope that you enjoyed this. I might take what I know and just do one video on silver with the brands that I like. So I bought all the different ones. Oh, and someone asked this too, what am I gonna do with all those other paints? All of these paints work great for thick techniques. Ring pours, straight pours, swipes, all of it. So I'm gonna use up those paints. I might just make one big batch of gold and dump all those colors of gold in there together and make a thick one with my Floetrol and gloss medium mixture. So they will not go to waste. But I might do silver and just try Arteza silver. I'll have to see if I have that one back here. Arteza silver, Liquitex Professional silver, maybe I have Atelier silver, and then maybe a combination of the way that I do it with either Soho or Creative Inspirations. So I think that might be my silver video that I do. But the last little thing, I will take you and show you what happens. Oh, I forgot. There is one more thing. If you mix too much binder in with your paints, even if it's a cell reactive paint, you will not get cells. I found that out, and I've actually used that to my benefit. So if some people say, you know what? I really don't want a lot of cells. You could either do it this way with one that doesn't create a bunch, but you could see even the Amsterdam created some. That was, I think, an interaction of the white and the blue. But you can add a pretty good amount of gloss medium in, and almost no cells will form whatsoever. You can also leave out the metallic. So I've gotten that question too, like, what do I do if I don't want a ton of cells? So that is another way that you can do that. But I will show you the one with Floetrol and gloss medium that I thinned out to this consistency to use for some of my coasters for my upcoming show, and I'll show you what happens. Okay, so this is one of my coasters. I mean, it's still very, very pretty, but you can see the base coat was, I was being a little bit lazy, and I had a batch of my Swipe Technique formula, so which is Floetrol and gloss medium, paint and water, and I thinned it out a bit, basically to the regular consistency, and I used it as a base. And as soon as I started, I was like, oh no, the colors are getting eaten, and it's because of that Floetrol. So you can see the base just kind of pops up through. You can see it here, up here, over here, and then you'll just get these pops of color. Now, this may be something that you like or enjoy, and it does look pretty, but it's not what I intended. So that is what happens with Floetrol and gloss medium when you thin it out. So that's, and I've learned this early on, and that's why I tried to take some of the Floetrol out of the recipe too, if I do need a binder to it. But there you have it. I really hope that you enjoyed this entire series. Thank you so much for watching and participating and commenting, and I will see you in the next video.